been
This
appearing or
conference will now be recorded.
right. So whether it is been appearing or uh, point to site VPN, we have done private network connectivity, except this virtual network gateway. Okay, so we have created virtual network gateway, and there, when we create virtual network gateway, it has come up with public IP address. So why do we need public IP address? So for all the websites, whatever we are using, right? Let's say portal.azure.com. So this is their own public internet. It means we are using that through public IP address. So those public IP addresses are provided by network service providers. And all the vendors, let's say if you want to host your website, you need a public IP address. And if you want to host any of the web application, whether it is a mobile app or any other service on your environment, you have to use public IP address. Okay, so considering all that, we are going to discuss about the public IP addresses. So which we are going to use this concept called, here it is, public IP addresses. And using this, we can proceed with the configuration. So there is already one public IP address which was used for VNet gateway. I'm deleting this one. So I'm going to show how to create that public IP address and enable the required configurations. Let it delete. Now we don't have any public IP address here. Okay. So click on create here, and you will have different types here again. The first one is IP version. So we have discussed about IP version 4 and IP version 6 earlier as part of our network sessions. If you want to create both, you can click on this both options. So let me go with IP version 4. We are using this one only for most of the enterprises. And the next one is SKU. SKU is nothing but the plan which we are going to see. It means, so these are the plans provided by Microsoft. If you go with basic, you will have some sort of settings. And if you go with standard, you have got some settings. So most of the cases, we will be using standard public IP address. Okay. So for that, just give me a second. Okay. So for this standard public IP address we choose, if you observe, there is only one IP address, one option here, static. So when I say static, it is going to be fixed for your uh, name that you're going to create for your configuration. Okay. So if I go with basic, you can create a dynamic and as well as static. So dynamic IP addresses are not recommended because it will keep on changing. Let's say if you assign a IP address to a virtual machine, it will be when you restart that virtual machine, and if it is having a dynamic IP address, it will keep on changing. So it is always recommended to have static IP address. Okay. So I'm going to create standard, or even in basic, you can go with static IP address. But as I said, go with standard IP address. And there are two options here again under tier. So it means If you are using this regional or global, so when I say regional, this public IP address will have an option to get it connected only through your location where you are going to create, okay, based on your resource group. So if I go with any other option like a global, you can use it for across, like for all the regions. However, it is not only with regards to usability, you can also configure with the settings like, if I say South India, this IP address configuration will have more flexibility where it will have zonal redundancy as well. So high availability options will be there in the backend. Okay, you can achieve that option as well using this concept. If I go with global, if it is regional, it is dedicated to only one data center. You will not have high availability. Okay, so if I consider another option here, which is like one minute. Sorry, I'm doing multitasking here, managing other meeting as well. Right, it's fine now. We can proceed. So that's the benefit of our regional and global. Okay, so I'm choosing this regional for now. You have to give the name of the IP address. So I will give demo public IP, and by default, when you choose standard, it will come as static. Okay, there is no option to modify it to dynamic. It should be static. Okay, so a routing preference. So this will come under the next level when we discuss about virtual machines. So we are going to have the default settings as of now, even for this a DNS label as well. We did not cover the DNS settings and all. Once we discuss about virtual machines, we can see that. If you go to, yeah, again, you have to choose a subscription and also the resource group where you wanted to deploy that. So I am using prod HR department resource group. Okay, so you can deploy in any resource group, and also you need to make sure the resource group location and your public IP address location should match. So let me cross verify what allocation is there for production resource group. If I go to HR department resource group here, and this is in East US. So here it is showing us South India. I need to match it to East US. Even without that location matching, still you can deploy. But the problem is it is not a best practice, and you'll have a lot of issues going forward if you're going to use multiple locations. East US and then availability zone. By default, we are going with this option. And again, as part of our virtual machine discussions, we have got a concept of availability set and availability zone. So once I cover that, then you will be able to understand this availability zone. I'm just proceeding with only this public IP address creation. Okay, so click on create. If you have the public IP address to the virtual machine, you can connect to virtual machine directly without having VPN also. Okay, VPN is not needed if you have public IP address. So let me refresh this. It will take few minutes. Right, you can see that there is a public IP address created. So click on this, you have got the IP address. See here, we are not going to create a network ranges in public IP address section. If you consider a private IP address section, we have created class A, class B, and class C ranges as part of our virtual network creation. But here it is not possible. You will be getting only one IP address because each and every IP address that you are going to get in Azure or even outside of Azure, it is billable. It means you need to pay IP address charges to network service provider. Okay, for private IP addresses, it is up to you whether you need it or not. You need to decide, and there is no need to pay any bills to anyone. Right. So now, if you look at here, associated to, it is showing us empty. It means this IP address is not associated to any device. It is just a free IP address. Okay, even if you create this public IP address and keep it as free, still there will be a charge for this one. Okay, so if you want to associate this one to any of your devices, let's say our virtual machine, since we did not discuss about virtual machines yet, I'll just show a high level, and then after the creation of virtual machine, we will discuss further again on this concept. Associate. It will show associate option, and where it will display all the network interfaces which are there for your virtual machines. For now, there are no network interfaces. Okay. So keeping that aside, and all the other settings which we have here will be discussed at next level once we cover virtual machines concept. Okay. So now, any questions here? This is just a creation of public IP address. How to use that will be discussed under virtual machines section. Any question? Okay, so if no questions, then I'll move on to virtual machines concept straight away. So just like, let's say if you want to purchase a laptop, right? You'll be looking after the hard disk capacity, RAM capacity, and also the processor, what you're going to get. And you're going to see all of these three things, and also the hardware manufacturer. Let it be like, we don't know about the hardware with like which are there inside the laptop, and we know the brands, right? Dell, HP, Lenovo, like this. So if you want to consider laptop, you'll be thinking of all of this to purchase one personal device. Similarly, in Azure, we have got different types of servers. I'm sure that you know about server operating system and client operating systems. Okay, so in Azure, we have different types of virtual machine configurations. Each and every configuration is predefined. You have to choose a nearby value. Let's say you want a server with uh, 10 GB RAM, and you want hard disk capacity of 1024 GB. Okay, so you have to go with, let's say, Azure Virtual Machine series. Okay, I'm going to show all of this different types of virtual machines. Right, so we have got A series virtual machines, BS series, D series, and E series. Likewise, we have got multiple series of virtual machines. So why do we have all these virtual machines? So if you consider A series, which is a very low level, the entry level VMs for testing only, and this will have very limited capacity, and the hardware which is being used on this A series virtual machines is very old hardware device. Okay, and if you consider, uh, let's go with D series. If you look at this D series, this is a general purpose computing, and it will have the better combination of CPU, memory, and temporary storage. And this D series will be able to meet the requirements associated with most production workloads. Okay, so production services కోసం ఈ D series virtual machine use చేయొచ్చు. Okay, if you consider E series, there will be some applications, right? So some applications needs more RAM. If you consider the gaming systems, if you want to develop games, or if you want to play games on your laptop, you need more memory. Along with that memory, you also need the, what do you call, graphics card, which will have additional experience on your system to play the games. Okay, so likewise in enterprise also, you will be requiring multiple set of configurations based on the business needs. Like if you consider mobile application like Flipkart or Amazon, those are normal applications, right, which will still consume memory to browse all the products and images on your mobile. And similarly, for any of the enterprise applications, like let's say government applications, so those are simple applications, but still it needs higher memory and CPU capacity to serve it for more and more users, depends on the user load. So E series will be used for memory applications, and you can see examples also here in this link. F series, these are compute optimized. For some systems, you need only CPU, and for some series, for some virtual machines, you need memory and as well as storage optimized, where the storage will be super fast and you'll be working on that servers. And H series, high performance computing virtual machines. So these are the different types which we have got in Azure, and I will show the exact sizes how they have how they are defined. Okay, uh, not this one, not this one. Right. Okay. Yeah, here it is. So if you look at, let's go to this D series, which is where we're going to use in our labs. Okay. So in D series, you can see the hardware model as well. And there are some features, whether it is supported or not, it is showing here. Premium storage is not supported. And there are some services you can see OS disks are not supported, nested virtualization not supported, which are like having a old configuration. So we're not going to consider this one for now. So yeah, see here under this DV2 series, we have got standard D1 V2. This is the size of the virtual machine, and CPU, which is nothing but, if you consider your laptop i3 processor, which will have uh, 3 CPUs. Just for example, if you have i5 processor, you will have 5 CPUs on your device. It means it is having a capacity of 5 CPUs which you can consume, and 3.5 GB of memory if you choose this size to be created. Okay, so if you want 3 GB on this DV2 series, there is no 3 GB here. You have to look after the nearby server or nearby capacity, and then if you're not able to satisfy with that capacity, you have to go to another series of virtual machine. As I said, we have got different series. You can see the left hand side what I'm scrolling here: compute optimized, memory optimized, storage optimized, and there are many types. Okay, so DSV2, where it has got all the versions supported, you should be looking after uh, this premium storage should be as supported. because when you are deploying a virtual machine in Azure, it should be uh, like it should be considered for all the applications, right? If you look at this DV2 series, there are only some features supported on this. Okay, so if a customer asks you, comes to you and says like, okay, hey, I want a virtual machine with 10 GB of RAM and 10 CPUs for a database server configuration. So you have to give storage optimized or memory optimized servers. Okay, so let's go to the next. Yeah, here it is, DSV2. ఇక్కడ చూడండి, the server size is fixed. Suppose if you want 2 GB, you have to create this. If you want 1 GB, you have to use this server capacity, okay, which we can see in the creation process. So now, if you want to upgrade from standard DS1 V2 to standard DS2 V2, yes, you can upgrade. That is also there, which we are going to see as part of our VM configuration process. Okay, so you have got DS3 V2, which is having 4 CPUs and 14 GB memory. And ఇక్కడ రైట్ సైడ్ ఇంకా చాలా ఉన్నాయి ఈ బాక్సెస్ లో. ఐఎమ్ నాట్ కవరింగ్ నౌ, just to avoid confusion. We will see after the creation of virtual machine. Okay, so these are the different series which are available under general purpose category. If I expand memory optimized, here you have different series of virtual machines. ఓకే, ఇక్కడ ఏదైతే చూస్తున్నామో ఈ వెబ్సైట్ లో ఇవన్నీ కూడా మన Azure పోర్టల్లో when we create a virtual machine, it will display. Okay, so here again EV3, ESV3, and if you go to EDV5, EDS, like these are the series that Microsoft has named based on the hardwares that they are using in the backend. Okay, if you want 672 GB of RAM on your server, you can deploy standard E10 4ID version 5, and the cost will also be very high because you are using very high configuration server. Okay, so likewise, yes,
అక్కడ బీటీపీ అంటే ఏంటిది? సిపియు
ఒక్క నిమిషం,
టూ ఆప్షన్స్.
స్లో స్లో, ఒక్క నిమిషం.
ఓకే,
వాయిస్ డిస్టర్బెన్స్ వస్తుంది, ఇప్పుడు మాట్లాడు.
కొంచెం పైకి
ఇప్పుడు చెప్పు.
స్క్రాల్ కొద్దిగా. ఓకే, అక్కడ ఓకే, ఇక్కడ సైజ్ పక్కన విసిపియు మెమరీ జీబీ ఉంది కదా.
ఆ,
అదేమంటే ర్యామ్ కెపాసిటీ అదొక
అదే చెప్పాను ఇందాక. సిపియు ఇప్పుడు నీ
అదే.
సిస్టమ్ లో i3 ప్రాసెసర్ ఉంది. i3 ప్రాసెసర్ అంటే 3 సిపియూస్ అన్నట్టు, i5 అంటే 5 సిపియూస్ అన్నట్టు. అంటే సిపియు అంటే మనకు డెస్క్టాప్ మోడల్ సిపియు కాదు, అది ప్రాసెసర్ అంటాం అనమాట. సో ఈవెన్ ఇన్ మై సిస్టమ్ there is a configuration, let's say, which you can see the processes here. Where is that? No, there is a shortcut to open that. Just give me a second.
ఇట్స్ లైక్ ఇంటెల్ కోర్ i3 ప్రాసెసర్, i4 ప్రాసెసర్, i5 ఉన్నాయి. అవి అవా?
నో నో, అది మన ల్యాప్టాప్ లో నేను ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇస్తున్నా. ఓకే, సో ఒక నిమిషం చూపిస్తాను. టాస్క్ మేనేజర్ ఓపెన్ చేస్తాను ఈ సిస్టంలో. ఇక్కడ ఉంటుంది సిపియు అనేసి. సిపియు అంటే ఏంటి? నీ ల్యాప్టాప్ లో i3 ప్రాసెసర్ ఉంటే, లేదు i5 ఉంటే, దాన్ని బేస్ చేసుకుని ఇక్కడ నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ కోర్స్ ఉంటాయి అన్నమాట. సో నా సారీ, నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ కోర్స్, లాజికల్ ప్రాసెస్ ఇవన్నీ ఉంటాయి. ఇది ఎందుకు యూజ్ అవుతాయి? నా సిస్టంలో 8 ప్రాసెస్ ఉన్నాయి, అంటే నా ల్యాప్టాప్ i5 ల్యాప్టాప్, అందులో ప్రాసెసర్స్ ఇన్ని ఉన్నాయి అన్నమాట. నీ సిస్టంలో ఇంకా డిఫరెంట్గా ఉంటాయి. అంటే ఏంటి, సిపియు అంటే పెద్ద డబ్బా అన్నట్టు మనకు కాలేజీలో చెప్పినట్టు అది కాదు. దట్ ఈస్ స్టిల్ సిపియు, బట్ హియర్ CPU is nothing but a processor. If you see here, my system is i5, is having i5 processor. So processor will have all the components that is required to process your data or all the setups that it is there on your system. So processor లేకపోతే వర్క్ అవర్ సిస్టమ్ అసలు, రైట్? మెమరీ ఇస్ నథింగ్ బట్ ర్యామ్ అన్నట్టు. ఓకే, ఈ రిమైనింగ్ తర్వాత చెప్తాను. సో జస్ట్ కన్సిడర్ నీ సిస్టమ్ కన్సిడర్ చేసుకో. ఇప్పుడు i3 ప్రాసెసర్ అంటే అందుకే చెప్పాను ఎగ్జాంపుల్ అప్పుడే కూడా. i3 అంటే 3 సిపియూస్ అని, i5 అంటే 5 సిపియూస్ అని. మళ్ళీ మీరు ఇక్కడికి వెళ్ళి చూడడానికి కన్ఫ్యూజ్ అవుతుందని చెప్పేసి అలా చెప్పా. ఓకే, ఇట్లా డిఫరెంట్ డిఫరెంట్ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్స్ ఉంటాయి. సో 16 సిపియూస్ 128 జీబీ ర్యామ్ కావాలంటే కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. అట్లా ఏది కావాలంటే అది కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసుకోవచ్చు అజూర్లో.
ఓకే, ఇక్కడ మెమరీ జీబీ అంటే ర్యామ్ అది.
అదే కదా చెప్పాను ఇందాక.
ఓకే ఓకే. ఫైన్ ఫైన్.
ఓకే, రైట్. CPU అంటే అగైన్ ఐఎమ్ నాట్ రిపీటింగ్. సో యూ విల్ హ్యావ్ ఆల్ దిస్ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్స్. అండ్ సిమిలర్లీ ఇఫ్ యూ గో టు స్టోరేజ్ ఆప్టిమైజ్డ్, ఇక్కడ కొన్ని సిరీస్ ఆఫ్ వర్చువల్ మెషిన్స్ ఉన్నాయి. ఇఫ్ యూ గో టు GPU which is like a graphics enabled servers, okay, graphics card enabled servers. If you go to NCV2, and these are like uh, memory is more, CPU is less, because for all the machines who are whoever is playing games, they need more memory on their systems to process that game in that system. Okay, so these are memory heavy servers if we consider GPU accelerated compute. So along with this normal memory, there will also be like graphics card memory, which we call it as GPU memory, graphics processing unit. Okay, especially this will be used in gaming systems to make sure that the game and all the activities within that game will work properly and speed. So we have got graphics memory as well along with normal memory. Okay, now if anyone comes to you and asks you to create a virtual machine, you need to consider various parameters. So what is the requirement of the virtual machine that they are looking for? Okay, so do they need it for database installation, or do they need it for do they need for any other requirement like application deployment, or for any of the business needs like app development? You have to consider all of this before you choose a virtual machine capacity. Okay, so here for now we can go with normal general purpose. Generally we can go with this general purpose or compute optimized. We will not be able to deploy all the server capacities that is there in Azure as part of our labs, because those are limited to our subscription. We cannot proceed with the deployments. Okay, so because there is a limitation of the subscription. Okay, so now any question here? Okay, so if no questions, then I will move on to the creation process. So creation is also simple, but we will not be creating the entire virtual machine in today's session. Okay, so let me go to this portal subscription, and from the home page, even for this also you need resource group, and along with the resource group, you also need a virtual network. And along with the virtual network, you also need to understand about storage. So that's the reason we have already discussed storage, storage, networks, and resource group concepts. Okay, so let me look after the resource group what I've got. I'm going to delete all the resource groups just to avoid confusion here. Delete, and I'm giving confirmation using this. Okay, so then delete, and I'm going to delete this prod HR department resource group as well, because if you delete the resource group, it is going to delete all the resources under that resource group. Okay, how many ever it is there, it will be deleted. So it is in progress, and I'm going to delete this one as well. We'll create all the resources fresh. Right, so let it go, and let's come back to the virtual machine section. In order to create a virtual machine, click on this context menu, and here we have an option called virtual machines. Select this and click on create. You have various options. Okay, these are newly added options. Earlier we had only this one option, which is Azure virtual machine. Okay. Okay, so we are going to discuss this feature, Azure virtual machine. And the first thing is you have to choose the subscription, and the next one, a resource group. So if you are creating this virtual machine for the first time, you can create a resource group at the time of VM creation itself. If not, you can choose any of your existing resource groups. Okay, so create new, and here I am choosing a resource group name, like a new one. So let's say VM hyphen resource group. I'm just giving this one as RG1. You can give any name for your lab, or I can go with prod VM, or let's say app hyphen resource group hyphen 01. Okay, and the name of the virtual machine, you have to give the name of the virtual machine. Let's say I'll make it as demo VM1. Okay, location. So this all depends on your organization and the client where they wanted to deploy. If the client is from Australia, they look for Australia data centers. If a client is from India, then they look for Indian data center. There are all the data centers here in this. You can choose whatever you want as usual. Okay, let's choose Australia East, and for now skip this option, availability options. So this is the next level. As I said, availability zone, availability set, scale set, this is the next level. we are proceeding with no infrastructure redundancy. It means we are creating a single virtual machine, and if there is any unexpected crash happen to that virtual machine, we don't have any redundancy. Okay, if I go with other options, availability zone and availability set, still we will have uh, the backup service. Not a backup, I would not say backup. It's a secondary server where you can achieve high availability. ఒకటి పోతే ఇంకోటి ఉన్నట్టు అనమాట అట్లా లెక్క. And security type, we are going with the standard. So there are multiple things, even trusted launch virtual machines and confidential virtual machines. So it means if you consider the standard, by default the basic level of security will be enabled on top of your virtual machines. Okay, uh, basic settings like they'll be blocking all the ports except the required ports to connect because of security concerns. And Azure Spot instance, this is something which we can discuss it after the creation of virtual machine. Image. So for your system, you might be using Windows 7, which is outdated now. You might be using Windows 10, and now Microsoft has released Windows 11 as well. So these operating systems are for personal uses, okay, which are called as client operating systems. మధ్యలో విండోస్ 8 ఉంది, అంతకుముందు ఎప్పుడు విండోస్ XP కూడా వాడాం. Okay, if we have already if you have used it few years ago. Now those are client operating systems. Similarly, we have server operating systems as well. So these, if you have any confusion, you can go and search in the internet differences between client operating systems and server operating systems. And again, under client operating system, you will have different types of configurations. So it means, let's say if I go with this PC, what is this? Show more options, properties. Properties like welte, you can see that the edition of the operating system. So my version is Windows 11 Professional, and for the operating systems you might see Windows 10 Home Edition, Windows 10 Educational Version, Windows 11 Enterprise Edition. So likewise, we will have different editions, like as we have in Android phones, we have different versions, right? Android 10, 11, 12, and there are different names for that Android versions. So those versions are there for client operating systems. Similarly, for server operating systems, we also have the editions like Windows Server Data Center Edition, and the latest version is Windows Server 2022 is the latest edition. We have got Windows Server 2016 Data Center Edition, and we also have the client operating system. If you can see the image here, the logo, it is totally different. Okay, for server operating systems, you can see this is thick blue, and then for client operating systems it is light blue color. So all of these operating systems are preloaded in Azure, which you have to choose whatever you want. I will show all the images. Click on this see all images. It will display a console like this. Let's say you want Windows Server operating systems. Here you can see there are multiple versions starting from Windows Server 2022 Data Center Edition. This is the latest version, Data Center Edition. Server 2019 is the previous generation. Still, there are customers who are using this. And there are customers who are still using Windows Server 2008. That was very old server, though it is out of support. Windows Server 2016 is also there, and we have got Windows Server 2012 also in our Azure environment. And there is no more Windows Server 2008 here in Azure platform. But some customers are still using Windows Server 2003 as well. That was even old system in on-premises platforms. Microsoft has stopped supporting all of that old operating systems. Okay. Now, so for our lab, we can choose any of the operating systems which are listed here, but we will be working only on Windows Server operating systems. If we consider normal operating systems like Windows 10, Windows 11, yes, that is also possible, which you can create using this image. Okay, so even in Windows 10, you have got Windows 10 Professional, Windows 10 Enterprise Edition, and yeah, we've got only Enterprise and Pro in Azure. For personal uses on your laptops, you might have Windows 10 Home Edition or Professional Edition. It depends on the operating system that you have got on your system. Now, if you look at Windows 11, we have got these versions. And the open source networks like Ubuntu, you have got different flavors. So Red Hat Linux, you might have heard this Linux servers. Yes, we have got Linux OS also in Azure platform. You can see different flavors of Red Hat Linux. Okay, Red Hat Enterprise Linux version 8, 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, you can deploy. Okay, so because Azure, like there are multiple customers across the world for Microsoft Azure, and each and every customer, when I say customer, it is nothing but an organization. Okay, so each and every organization will have specific requirements based on their business model. Okay, so if they have a business model where they wanted to use Windows servers, yes, they'll go for Windows servers, and they will have mixed environments as well, mixed operating systems as well. Okay, like we have Red Hat Linux, we have got CentOS, we have got Visual Studio 2022 servers. Everything is there directly on Windows 11 machines. And Red Hat Linux. In Linux, we've got uh, different flavors, right? This is Kali GUI Linux, Debian Linux. And if you look at the next page, you have got Oracle Linux as well. This is the flavor developed by Oracle based on Linux kernel. Okay, so Ubuntu Professional Edition. There are hundreds of operating systems available in Azure. So if you look at the next, there are 81 pages like this, which you can just monitor. Now, let's go back to the first page. I'm going to choose Windows Server 2012 Data Center Edition for our lab. Okay. If you're not able to find your operating system that you need in this list, you can always go for see all images from this page, or you can select here. Okay. We have selected the image, whatever that we want. And the next option is size of the virtual machine. So this is what we were discussing in this window, okay, in this browser window. So now if you look at the size, we have got only like 4 images which are recommended by image publisher. However, click on this option, see all images, and you will find different series of virtual machines as part of your subscription availability. Okay, so look for D2S V3. If not, you go for expand this one D series. You can choose this type of virtual machine, D2S, D2DS V5. So it is difficult to remember all the series of virtual machines. At least you should know, like we have got compute optimized, where you'll see F series, memory optimized D series. Okay, because you are going to choose the size of the virtual machine based on that memory requirement or storage requirement or GPU requirement. There are various criterias. So you'll get to know as we move on these sessions. Okay, so I'm choosing DS1V2 for our lab, just very small size virtual machine, just to save credits on our subscription. If I go with a big size virtual machine, credits will be consumed very fast. Okay, so if not DS1 V2, I can go with D2S V3 as well, which is again 2 CPUs and 8 GB of memory. Okay, so now let me go with DS1 V2, select. You can see here, if you run this machine for 24/7, and the cost it is showing here is 4,400 rupees per month. But this is just an estimate based on the actual utilization, and based on your subscription discount, the cost will be even less. Okay, this is just an estimation. We will see pricing calculator as well. I think I've already shown it, but to exactly calculate the price, how we can save the cost and things like that, I'll show in a separate session. So you have to select the size of the virtual machine, and then you have to choose the username that is needed for the business. Okay, so to log into the server, you need username and password, right? You have to give username and password here. Just like to our laptop, what we use username and login, you can choose whatever that you like. So I'm going to use this username, admin BLR, and the password I'm using something like lengthy password. So I have given username and password, and also have confirmed the password. Okay, so the next step is inbound rules, and this is like, again, we have to go with all the remaining settings. There are next steps like disks, port numbers, networking. There are many things which we need to cover. So let's close the session for today, and if you want to still practice till this point, go ahead and observe all the options whatever we have, and I'm going to show next level of settings because we have got more and more settings under the virtual machines. Okay, I'll stop the recording.